There is a profound depth to the human soul that most people never truly see. For a certain type of mind, the world is not merely experienced, it is absorbed. They feel more deeply, they think more intricately, and they carry a weight far heavier than they would ever reveal. To the outside observer, they appear as a calm and collected presence, a quiet harbor in a noisy world. But beneath that still surface, there is often a torrential emotional storm. This is the intricate reality of the quiet empath, the intuitive soul who navigates life with a profound understanding of others. Yet, when the shadows of trauma enter their story, the resulting fractures do not manifest in loud, chaotic ways. Instead, the pain is internalized. It reshapes the very foundation of how they perceive trust, how they interact with love, and how they view their own reflection. Trauma, in these deeply intuitive minds, is not a dramatic display of sorrow. It is a quiet retreat. It is the invisible armor they wear, while continuing to offer warmth to everyone else. Today, we invite you to step into this quiet world. We will explore the silent echoes of pain, not to analyze, but to deeply understand, and to offer a pathway toward gentle healing. Think of a city that has endured a devastating winter, or perhaps a long and silent war. On the surface, the streets are clean, the buildings stand tall, and life appears to move forward with a steady rhythm. The resilience is beautiful, yet beneath the pavement, the foundations bear the hidden cracks of history. This is exactly how unspoken trauma operates within a deeply empathetic person. When they experience profound loss, sudden betrayal, emotional neglect, or a heartbreaking disappointment, they do not shatter in public. Instead, they become highly functioning survivors. They will still show up for their families. They will still pour their hearts into their work. They will still smile warmly at strangers and offer a comforting shoulder to friends in need. Because they value the harmony of the community above their own comfort, they master the art of being invisible in their suffering. They would rather carry a crushing burden alone than risk becoming a burden to someone else. But the human heart can only hold so much in silence. The signs of this buried pain are always there, written in subtle shifts of behavior, in the quiet hesitance of their voice, and in the distance they place between their heart and the world. The first and perhaps most profound sign of this hidden trauma is emotional withdrawal. This is not a sudden, angry departure. It is a slow, quiet fading. Imagine a house where, one by one, the lights in the rooms are gently turned off until only a single dim bulb remains in the hallway. They are physically present. They still ask how your day was, and they still offer wise counsel. But their own internal world becomes a heavily guarded fortress. This withdrawal is rooted entirely in safety. When the act of opening up in the past resulted in being misunderstood, judged, or abandoned, the mind learns a tragic lesson. It learns that vulnerability is a dangerous gamble. So they pull back. When asked how they are doing, they will offer a gentle smile and say that everything is fine. This is not a lie born of a malice. It is a shield. They desperately crave deep, authentic connection. Yet, the very thought of exposing their fragile heart triggers an alarm in their nervous system. The tragedy here is the isolation it breeds. They become stranded on an island of their own making, surrounded by people who love them, yet feeling entirely unseen. The second shadow cast by trauma is the exhausting habit of overanalyzing every human interaction. These intuitive individuals are naturally observant, but trauma turns that observation into a mechanism of survival. Every spoken word, every slight pause in a conversation, every shifting facial expression is placed under a mental microscope. If a friend sends a simple message saying they will call later, it is not received as a casual remark. The mind immediately begins a relentless interrogation. Did they sound distant? Did I say something wrong yesterday? Are they secretly angry with me? This happens because past experiences have taught them that the surface is never the whole truth. They have learned the hard way that smiles can hide deceit and promises can evaporate. Therefore, they constantly scan the horizon for the first sign of a storm, hoping to protect themselves before the rain begins to fall. But this hypervigilance is profoundly draining. It turns the simple joy of companionship into a complex puzzle that must be constantly solved. They suffer silently in a web of their own fearful assumptions, longing for the day when they can simply take a kind word at face value. The third quiet manifestation is a devastatingly heightened sensitivity to criticism. For a heart that feels everything deeply, words possess a physical weight. When a person carries the invisible bruises of harsh judgments from their past, whether from demanding parents, critical mentors, or toxic relationships, any form of feedback feels like a renewed attack. A gentle suggestion to change a minor detail at work is not heard as professional advice. It is filtered through the lens of trauma and amplified into a resounding declaration of failure. The internal dialogue spirals instantly. They tell themselves they are inadequate, that they are a disappointment, that they will never measure up to the expectations of the world. They do not just hear the words spoken. They invent the words they believe are being hidden. This overwhelming fear of making a mistake paralyzes their potential. They become overly cautious, checking and rechecking their work, terrified of stepping into the spotlight. When confronted with critique, they will often nod politely and express gratitude, burying the profound sting deep within, only to lie awake at night, replaying the conversation until it completely shatters their peace of mind. This brings us to the fourth sign, which is an intense, almost desperate avoidance of conflict. In a world that often demands we fight for our space, the traumatized intuitive soul sees conflict not as a necessary step toward resolution, but as an immediate threat to their emotional survival. The sound of a raised voice, the heavy tension of a disagreement, or the sharp edge of frustration in a room can make them feel as though the ground is disappearing beneath their feet. They remember the times they bravely tried to voice their truth, only to be silenced, dismissed, or met with explosive anger. To prevent history from repeating itself, they choose the path of total appeasement. They will swallow their own discomfort. They will agree to things they deeply oppose. They will absorb the anger of others like a sponge, all to maintain an artificial peace. But this peace is merely an illusion. The unspoken grievances do not vanish. They accumulate in the quiet corners of the heart, building a heavy reservoir of sorrow and resentment. By avoiding the small fires of daily disagreements, they unwittingly prepare the ground for an emotional collapse, sacrificing their own voice on the altar of harmony. The fifth way this pain reveals itself is through the exhausting armor of perfectionism. It is a common misconception that perfectionism is simply a desire for excellence. For those carrying the weight of emotional trauma, perfectionism is a survival strategy. It is the tragic belief that love, safety, and worthiness must be aggressively earned. If a child grew up in an environment where affection was conditional, handed out only when they achieved the highest marks or behaved flawlessly, they carry that conditioning into adulthood. They construct an impossible standard for their careers, their relationships, and their physical appearance. They believe that if they can just be completely flawless, they will finally be immune to rejection. Every small error feels like an absolute catastrophe. They work late into the night. They overprepare for every conversation, and they rarely ask for assistance. This relentless pursuit of the impossible eventually leads to a profound spiritual and physical burnout. The tragedy is that in their desperate attempt to present a perfect self to the world, they hide the beautifully human, wonderfully flawed essence that is truly worthy of unconditional love. The sixth quiet sign is a profound and lingering difficulty in trusting others. Deeply empathetic people are naturally inclined to see the good in humanity. They are warm, inviting, and fiercely loyal to their friends. But when their innate trust has been deeply violated, a massive wall is erected around their innermost sanctuary. They may be the life of the party, they may be the one everyone turns to for advice, but they remain an enigma. You may know their favorite authors, their musical tastes, and their political views, but you will not know the fears that keep them awake at night. Trust for them is no longer a given right. It is a rare and precious currency that is handed out in microscopic increments. Even when someone proves themselves to be loving and steadfast, the traumatized mind whispers words of doubt. They will test the waters with a tiny admission of vulnerability, watching the other person's reaction with breathless anticipation. If there is even a hint of judgment, the drawbridge is immediately raised. They desperately long to be completely known and held in the warmth of a secure connection. But the memory of the blade is always sharper than the promise of a safe harbor. The final, and perhaps most heartbreaking sign, is the relentless tendency toward people-pleasing. There is a beautiful cultural concept of deeply rooted affection and connection, a sense of binding loyalty that compels us to care for one another. But when trauma distorts this beautiful trait, empathy mutates into self-abandonment. The person stops giving out of joy and begins giving out of fear. They say yes to extra responsibilities when their body is screaming for rest. They listen to the complaints of others for hours while ignoring their own profound grief. They become the ultimate caretakers of the world, entirely forgetting to nurture themselves. This stems from a core wound that whispers they are only valuable as long as they are useful. If they stop accommodating everyone else, they fear they will be discarded and left completely alone. They become a vessel constantly pouring water for thirsty travelers, never realizing that their own well has run completely dry. The resentment that builds is deeply confusing to them because they believe they are simply doing the right thing. But true love, true connection, never demands the total destruction of your own boundaries. If you recognize yourself in these quiet shadows, it is essential to pause and understand something of absolute importance. These behaviors are not character flaws. They are not signs of weakness, nor are they a life sentence of brokenness. They are brilliant instinctual survival mechanisms. At one point in your story, in moments of deep vulnerability or profound fear, your mind constructed these walls to keep you alive and safe. You learned to retreat, to analyze, to achieve perfection, and to please others because the environment you were in demanded it for your survival. Like a resilient flower, pushing its way through solid concrete, you did what you had to do to find the sun. But the season has changed. The war is over. The heavy armor that once protected you is now the very thing weighing you down, keeping you from experiencing the warmth of genuine connection and the lightness of peace. Acknowledging this truth is the dawn of your healing. It is the moment you look in the mirror, see the exhaustion in your own eyes, and gently whisper that you no longer need to fight a battle that has already ended. The journey of healing is not a sudden, dramatic transformation. It is a quiet, daily revolution. It begins with the profound courage to set boundaries. It is the difficult, trembling breath you take before you say the word no, and the realization that the world does not end when you choose your own peace over someone else's convenience. Healing is allowing yourself to make a mistake, to be remarkably average on a Tuesday, and understanding that your worth remains absolutely unchanged. It is the slow, deliberate process of opening the door to your heart just a crack and letting one safe person see the mess inside. You will learn that conflict, when handled with grace and honesty, does not sever relationships. It strengthens them. You will discover that the people who truly belong in your life will celebrate your boundaries, not challenge them. This path requires immense patience. There will be days when the old fears rise up and you retreat to your fortress. That is completely okay. Healing is not a straight line. It is a gentle upward spiral, a continuous return to self-compassion, grace, and the radical belief that your feelings fundamentally matter. And to those who are listening because you love someone who carries this quiet, intuitive depth, your role is both profoundly simple and incredibly vital. You do not need to fix them. You do not need to pry the doors of their heart open with grand gestures or demanding questions. What they need is your steady, unwavering presence. They need you to be a calm and consistent harbor. When they withdraw, do not take it as a personal rejection. Offer them space, but leave a light on in the window so they know you are still there. When they overanalyze, offer them clear, gentle reassurance without mocking their fears. Show them that it is safe to disagree with you. Celebrate their imperfections and constantly remind them that they do not have to perform miracles to earn a place at your table. The greatest gift you can offer a traumatized heart is the gift of time. Let them unfold at their own pace. When they finally choose to lay down their armor and share their deepest truths with you, recognize it for the sacred honor that it is. Your patience can be the very soil in which their trust begins to bloom again. The human spirit is remarkably resilient. Like a city completely rebuilt from the ashes, grander and more compassionate than before, you possess the power to reconstruct your inner world. The trauma you have endured has undeniably shaped the way you move through life. But it absolutely does not dictate your final destination. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be heard, to rest, and to be profoundly loved just as you are, without condition and without performance. As you walk forward on this journey of self-discovery and healing, may you find the courage to lay down the heavy burdens you were never meant to carry alone. May you be blessed with profound peace, quiet grace, and an abundance of warmth in your days ahead. Thank you for sharing this time and this quiet space with us today. If this message brought some comfort to your heart, we simply hope you carry that comfort forward into the world. Sharing grace with yourself and others. Until we meet again, walk gently and be well.